Bears. Stuff by Bears. What should we gonna do? That is the title of this video, and it is part of the Tabletop Gaming live presentation, and I've got all these amazing people. What we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about competitions. Well, this year there's not just going to be one competition, the design competition that's been going on for a while, but we are bringing in a brand new competition for the LDEC. We're going to be talking about Categrickell, the first ever winner back in 2018 of the first design contest. We're going to be talking about Coupell with Miles and what Miles is bringing to that, possible idea Bezzy budget bags, and just all about the future plans. So let's get on with it, and without further ado, who are we? Well, my name is Bez, and I am game designer, artist, developer, publisher, streamer. I am really proud of everything I've managed to bring together. It's become like a community, everyone working together for the LDEC and just enjoying it. And I'm really proud of the fact that Yogi, a game that I designed 7-8 years ago now, is still continuing to bring people together and continuing to facilitate joy. I love board games, I love dancing, I love everything around. So, Miles, what's up with you?
Hi, I'm Miles. I'm an artist. I'm an artist, a sort of traditional artist. I'm also a video game artist and an environmental scientist. And I'm currently just starting my career and everything. I've been invited on to work on a Coupell deck, and that's a really exciting opportunity. I look forward to showing and talking about it. Yeah.
And thank you for everything that you're really brilliant stuff, helping to step it up that little bit more. And Tom, what's up with you?
Hi, I'm Tom. I got involved with Stuff by Bez by designing a game. I won the first competition back in 2018 with a game called Categrickell, which should be coming out soon. And I am quite proud of that design still. I mean, it's 3 years later, but still, it's a good feeling having that out in the world. I'm also proud of having created the Sheffield playtest group, which met quite regularly back when we could do that, and hopefully we'll do again soon. There's a few games come out of that, and I do love just playing games with people, and I've really developed a greater appreciation for that over the last year. And I just love people. People are great. Just being with people.
Some people are great. Most people are generally great, but let's move on swiftly.
People are great.
Jason, musician, experimental composition. Who are you? What are you all about?
Well, I'm Jason. As I said, I'm a composer. I do a lot with experimental music, particularly actually with like games, designing games for musicians to play in order to create performances. I got involved with Stuff by Bez through volunteering. Actually, I helped out a couple of conventions, and then gradually I started wiggling my way into organising the tables, and then the timetables and the people who were other people who were volunteering, and eventually Bez took me on, and I'm now the professional poker of to-dos. I think that's going to be my official title from now. I'm going to add that to my CV. It's been great fun. I mean, I'm particularly proud of Categrickell, which is a musical game based on Fable and Phrasal from the LDEC, and I adapted that into a game for musicians, which actually Bez has. I've had the pleasure of Bez narrating during one of the workshops. Was it last year? No, 2 years ago now. Wow.
Yeah, time has flown in these days, and it was such a privilege to be part of that. And yeah, seeing something that I had made and having it played basically by a bunch of really talented musical artists, that was really awesome.
I wasn't one of the talented musical artists I don't play very well. I write, don't play.
And Chris, who I first met when, Chris Chris was dating a former housemate and then became a former housemate of mine, and you've moved away. We may have our geographical differences, but we're still friends.
You've said everything now. What's left for me to say? No, I'm really proud to be part of this community. I'm proud of the fact that we've managed to get our LDEC Twitter account to 180 followers, hopefully soon to 200. And I'm also really in love with the fact that I found a newfound enthusiasm for doing some digital drawing. And that's all down to sort of doing the work that I do for Bez, just sort of opening up my creative skill set.
And I want to give a quick shout out to Dina, who unfortunately can't be here, but we'll talk a wee bit more about Dina later, who is a full-time community manager, marketer, playtester, organizer, who I'm going to start partnering up with. And that brings me to the first section. And just a note on that Twitter account. This is a relatively new Twitter account. So obviously I have my own Twitter account, which has 2,955 followers, but this new one, which last time I checked, it's up to 182. So it's just 100% LDEC stuff. So if you follow that, that's twitter.com/ELL_deck, and that will give you what sort of content can you expect to see there.
So it's a kind of range of content. So it's mainly just the highlighted AL games that we can play online. Maybe some of them adapted a little bit just for Twitter. But it's really exciting to kind of be on the backside of that and seeing how creative people can become with the answers.
I found the Wibble one quite hard sometimes. Just sitting there going, I trying to think of words.
I've got
why
to
did you
make
get
it
those
more
letters?
difficult just because some people are finding it too easy.
Fable's interesting. I always think of something, and then suddenly it's the next one. I'm like, oh, it's a bit too late.
It's really fun seeing everyone bring in something, and whether that's, hey, what would you have with RB? Would you have rhubarb broth or radiant Benjamins or rascally Bez or whatever, and giving a little snippet of what it's like to play one of these games, which I really appreciate, trying to make it a bit of fun and having a good time. And that is exactly like I was saying, it is all about, as time goes on, the first thing that I want to say is I am going to make it so that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was just me. I did In a Bind. I did the In a Bind expansions. I did In a Bind Junior and the first edition of the LDEC, that back then known as Wibble++. But when it came time to do Wibble++ Deluxe, when it came time to do Kitty Cataclysm, I got a little help from Denim. Just someone doing a bit of stuff and helping me. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's helped me along the time. I mean, everyone who's come over to help me during conventions, like during online conventions, like if we count that, then at least 3 of the faces here have helped me. But it's also about admitting that I can't do everything myself. It's not a failing. It's not like, hey, you're better than me. It's everyone's bringing their own direction. And so maybe that's Dina coming on board to help with marketing. Maybe that's asking a bigger company to help with fulfillment. Maybe it's saying to someone, hey, can you help me reach an international market? And talking about that, I'm very much in discussions. I'm not going to say exactly who it is yet, but when I'm going across into distribution, when that is my aim, that is something that it's all about the relationships that you build, that logistics. It's not a skill set that I want to have. I will be stepping back. I will not be doing fulfillment probably after Categrickell. So in future, if you've really enjoyed the fact that when I ship out things, there's a little self-portrait of me on the envelope every time, and maybe a drawing of some weird and wonderful animals on the front, well, I'm sorry, that won't be the case for very much longer. But you might still get an occasional sticker or something in there.
I knew I saved mine for a reason. They're going to be limited special edition. Going to rack up those prices on eBay.
I do want to make it clear that whoever I work with, everyone has to share the values. And what I believe is that the thing that matters the most is social connections. Everyone being together and trying to maximize the amount of fun we can have. Trying to make it so that we can just have a good time together, making it so that we are thinking about the environmental impacts of everything, making it so that we're not representing ourselves in a dishonest way, making it so that we are treating everyone with as much love and respect as we possibly can. And that is just something that I want to make it clear that at the end of the day, games are important, games matter. But humans are more important. Humans matter more. And quality matters. You need to have some stuff that's just really nice to look at, but at the same time, you need to have some stuff that's just experimental. And we'll get onto that in a wee bit. But with that, with the notion, I mean, obviously everyone here has talked a wee bit about what you're all bringing to Stuff by Bez, and there's a reason why on the back of the Wibble++ Deluxe box, it doesn't say Stuff by Bez, it says Stuff by Everyone. Now, let's get into the competitions, unless anyone has anything to say on that.
I think we covered it all.
Okay, well, game design competitions. We are going to have, when I started off the LDEC, it was Andrew Dennison. I want to give a special shout out to Andrew Dennison, designer of Alphabetical, one of the original games for the LDEC. Where it was Andrew who made me realize, wow, this is an idea. I never would have had this idea. I have been working on developing these things, don't get me wrong. The Categrickell that Tom submitted is fairly different to the Categrickell as it currently exists. But there was still that nugget. I would never have made a game if it had not been submitted by Tom. I'm not going to say no one else could have made it because, hey, there's 7 billion of us. But you know what I mean. It's all about having crowdsourcing that a little bit. And more than anything, I want you to know that what this represents to me, yes, it's a game system. It's already good. People have been enjoying the games for it. I want this to be the best curated game system in the world. I want people to be able to buy one of these games, certain in the knowledge that every year there will be more and more games coming for it. Sometimes maybe going out and buying a new deck just because it's beautiful, but you don't need to. Whatever you buy, even if you aren't able to spend very much money, you will have that key to everything.
I mean, I'd say it goes both ways, Bez, in the sense that Tom probably wouldn't have come up with that game if it wasn't for the L deck and the way it's designed and laid out. I certainly wouldn't have come up with Musical if it wasn't for Fable and Fraser, and I have a very heavy bias because I'm a role player to these kind of games. But I wouldn't have come up with it had I not been part of the conventions or even played with it. So it does go both ways, and I think I agree with you. There's something about the L deck and the company of Stuff by Bez in the sense that it is a community, and I know that's a phrase that a lot of both small and big businesses throw out there, but I don't think I felt like that in a lot of other places I've worked. This is a proper community. We can all have our say, and kind of have open discussions about new projects, new ideas, and nothing's thrown out the window. It's always explored, and then reality comes and throws it out the window for you.
I mean, sometimes you definitely have to say no, but
no, yeah,
I think, and some entrants, you might have an idea for a design, and I want everyone to feel like, hey, if I've got a game that is playable, I can submit it. I want it to be as easy to enter as possible. I want people to feel open to doing things. And yeah, that brings me to the whole game design contest for sure. Now, at the start, I asked people, what do you want from a game design contest? What's the most important thing that I can offer you? And what people said was, I want feedback. And I tried to give the feedback. I tried to, each year, give a little bit more, for a feedback, playtest everything, and give a lot of commentary on especially the top few games, but then also allow people the opportunity to have some sort of consultation, whether that means, hey, I want to talk about this game that I entered, or I want to talk about a completely different game that I'm working on, or maybe I want you to be my accountability buddy, just to get me out of the, make sure that I'm walking enough, and can we meet every couple of weeks for that? So let's go to 2018, Categrickell by Tom Cauldron. Tom, can you talk about the design of this and your experience entering it?
Well, it was probably my third attempt at designing a game, I think. I'd played around a bit with the cards, just to, because a pack of cards has so many possibilities, and I just sort of tried a few different things, I think, before even you announced the competition. So I developed a couple of games, but they weren't quite, they weren't quite singing. I put a lot of effort into one where you put out a grid of cards and were gradually making, cooperatively making words. But this one day I decided to start just playing with the cards. I set out 5 cards in a row, and I said, why are these cards in a row? Maybe because you're trying it's a tug of war. Someone's trying to get to one end and someone else trying to get to the other end. Okay, how are they getting towards their end? Shouting out a word, starting one of the letters. Okay. And it just fell together really quickly. And it turned out to be a fun, fast, real-time game that any number of people could play, and it was it just created a joyful experience. And I haven't had that happen with other game designers, to be honest. I think there's so many possibilities with the L deck system, or the Wibble deck system as it was back then. This is one of many different ways you can go with it. I know that Chris Bockey also had an idea for shouting out categories when you see a card, but I had the tug of war thing. So we were kind of both in there in the same, with a similar idea, but I think the development of it that Bez put in just sort of lifted it to that next level, and it's now a really fun game. I still enjoy playing it now. Do you want me to go through a bit more the detail of the actual rules and how you play it?
So what I was thinking is that, just to take a step back, even though you won in 2018, and this is, of course, a show about what's coming up in the future, and you might be thinking, what's going on with this game? It was a contest from 2 years ago, but the truth is that games take time. And the other thing is that, well, so here's the typeface. This gives you an idea of roughly what the letter shapes are going to look like, because this is going to be the first deck for the deck. Well, this is going to be the first version of the deck that has a typeface specially designed around the game. And I'm still exploring what the letter shapes should look like, but this is pretty much what it's going to be like. Imagine that, but instead of, well, you know what I mean. Imagine a card with an A on it, but instead of A like that, it's A like that. One of these two. Because it captures that high energy impact of that game. It captures the... Okay, shout a food that starts with one of these letters. Who can do first?
Pie.
Apple.
I got there first.
And then shout a food that starts with one of these letters.
Tomato.
Yeah, Jason got there first. And
I do
it
have a
goes
lot
back
of practice.
You split yourself into 2 teams, and two people come in, you try to take control of the streets of cards, two teams are facing off against each other, shouting things and trying to match and quickly outwit the other group. It is such a joyous experience. And again, let me bring it back to the notion that all of these games, even though the game system itself might have been released in 2017, new things are going to keep being made for it. This is a game system that will stay fresh for decades to come, in my mind.
Hey, that's fun.
Pun not intended, genuinely. But Tom, do you have anything more to say on this game and the fact that we got to Kickstarter last year? I was hoping to release it in January this year, but because of, you know, everything, it's not quite gotten there. And there is a big delay in printing and production. Right now, the next possible printing date is after August, which is not great. But I'm chatting to some people who are going to help with that whole manufacturing and logistics, again, going back to partnering with larger companies. And so this is hopefully going to come out by the end of the year. I am immensely blessed, and thank you everyone on Kickstarter who is being incredibly patient. Thank you so much. And we are going to get this out. And Tom, anything more that you want to say about this?
Well, I'm just really looking forward to seeing the final product. I'm obviously seeing all your letters that you've been doing for it. I think it's looking pretty good, and I think it's going to be a lot of a really good product when it finally comes out.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And just a shout out to 2019, Paul Mansfield, who did Unfinishable, and that was the first year that I decided, okay, there's going to be a cash prize. Just because sometimes saying, okay, 100 quid, it's something that captures people's imagination to say, oh yes, actually this person's serious. And then in 2020, because of everything that's been going on, it was difficult to get all this stuff play tested. And one of the games, we had to actually say, you know what, this game, it's for 4 to 10 players. We just cannot play test this. We are going to ask the designer to reconsider, possibly resubmit next year. But each year, how does it work? Chris, would you like to chat a wee bit about the playtesting process and everything that went into all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started this at the start of the everything last year, and we got all the games together and we actually started looking at them for the first time. It was a really interesting process, and it was really good to have, I think, the ability to be able to stream that, and to have live feedback a little bit sometimes here and there, especially when we got a little bit later on in the process. But it felt really good to be able to have such a diverse collection of creativeness from people who have all been given the same stuff, but they come out with something completely different that you would never even possibly expect from, you know, such a wordy designed deck. You know, it's like somebody coming out with a story game for a deck of cards. You know, so it's been fun and exciting to do it. It's been challenging though in some points, obviously with the lack of the ability of having a lot of people to be able to try and play test these games with. But I think we've done really well by collaborating as much as we could with external people to try and not influence any bias. And I think we gave really good feedback to pretty much everybody that entered. I hope, at least.
So 2020, I will describe, the way it worked, and bear in mind all the pandemic stuff. So we started playing everything in August. September, we finished playing everything. We went through some big long streams, and we went through basically 20 games that had all been submitted that year. It was fantastic. And some of these games we had to play multiple times because you can't just base it on the one play. And you say diversity, and I want to, yes, 100%. Of course, we had word games. We also had a social deduction game that just, what? We had a word deduction game. We had a speed games. We had slow turn-based games. And in the end, I think we were, honestly, sometimes at the start, you think, okay, these are going to be the best games. And you might be right, but you want to play it a lot more just to be sure. Now, I would have liked to play these games like 20, 50 times, but given the year, it wasn't possible. So coming to the end of the year, we said, okay, we are going to give the full prize money and everything to two people, Biodiversity and Invisible. Alex Cannon and Xate work together for Biodiversity, and Invisible is primarily by Alex Cannon with a lot of testing from Xate. And so just to clarify again, the process, first, we play everything. I play everything with whomever I can. Second step, anything that I think might have a shot, I want to anonymize somehow. Now, I didn't get a chance to rewrite these rules and send them out because people wouldn't have been able to play them anyway. But what I did do is I played them with Chris, with McCall, with Layla, with parents, and was one other person that Layla brought over just so we could get a 4-player game played. And saying, okay, which one of these do you think is best? With no idea who had made it. And so it's not that these two people had worked on these games, therefore both of their games won. No, it's no one except for me had any idea who had created these games, and that is vitally important to my process, I believe. Now, in future years, back when it was 2018, I was able to take Categrickell and play it at Tabletop Scotland. When was that? September sometime? And at that point, I might have played it, I don't know, 20 times a day over the 3-day weekend. So by the end of it, it's 60 times. And I see other people playing it, and I'm so certain, okay, this is the game. And it was actually by the end of that weekend that I decided this is definitely the game. But I want to give myself until the end of the year, because it's not just about going into 2021. How will you enter the design contest? Well, you need to go to stuffbybez.com/game contest. So that link again is stuffbybez.com/game contest, and that will redirect you to a Google form where if you've got the video, you can use that. If you've got the rules written down, you can use that. However you want, as long as I can play the game, that is a valid entry. It can be based on something that's public domain, as long as you tell me, as long as it's done in full openness. It can be a words game, it can be an idea that doesn't quite work. Even if it's a flawed thing, feel free to submit it, and we will play it. If nothing else, you will get to hear what other people think of it. And thinking about the future of the game design contests, does anyone have anything more to say?
I mean, I would say take the opportunity to enter a competition with feedback. As someone who submits to competitions and workshops and all sorts, the best things I've ever gotten were the feedback. It doesn't matter if you didn't get it through to the final stage, or it did. That would be wonderful, but then what would you have learned? Whereas actually this process, I'm very biased because I'm very working for Stuff by Bez now, but I would say from a personal experience, submitting something that's not quite there and then having that feedback just helped your future projects. And you never know, you could take that game again and resubmit it the next year and just keep going and keep going. Or maybe if you down the line go, actually, I like this tiny section of this larger project. It's worth taking. Even just submitting something, regardless of feedback, to get you out that dry spot. I know during the situation, there's a lot of creatives that have dried up, and we've kind of got stuck in our ruts more easily than previously. So absolutely, take the opportunity where you can.
And if you are just someone who wants to play games, you don't want to get involved in the design, hopefully it's still exciting to know that there is a path where people are continuing to be incentivized to submit game ideas, and every year you will have at least one new game that I say, yes, this game is worth your time. I can proudly stand up behind it and say this game is worth playing. I'm not going to say it's going to be your favorite game. There's no game that you can say it's going to be everyone's favorite game, but there's going to be someone who really loves it. And ideally, every game each year should be someone's new favorite LDEC game. There are people who, I know Denim said Categrickell was their favorite game for the deck. And I know that David Brains said that Unfinishable is David's favorite game for the deck. And I know that there's been a couple of people who've started saying, actually, Invisible, that is my favorite game for the deck. And I'm really excited to try and keep up that level of quality. And again, going back to the points of, yes, I will have a little help from my friends. I am going to step back from production. I'm going to step back from manufacturing, from all that logistics stuff. But I'm going to keep an eye on everything, development-wise and design-wise. I'm making sure that everything is up to scratch. Now, that brings me up to the big announcement that I want to say. There is an art contest. And what is going on with this? Yeah, what do you have to do? Firstly, there has to be a family-friendly theme. I don't want... especially if you're starting to have representational artwork within your typography. Secondly, you need to make, 7 letters? T, L, D, C, and K. So that's the letters that you use to spell out the LDEC. And I'm going to have everyone spell that out using their typography. I want to see something really beautiful. And you can upload and send up to 5 entries. What are going to be the prizes? The prizes are going to be very similar. So first place gets £100. Plus, if they want, the option will be open to them. They can have their name, assuming that we go to a convention that year, they can have their name up on the wall along with the art that has been created. Runners-up will get mentions, will get a big package of games, and the runners-up, of which there will be 4, so 1 grand winner plus 4 runners-up, everyone in that group of 5 will be entitled to a little bit of my time. As I said, however I can help you, whether that's kicking your posterior occasionally, or whether that's giving you some advice, or whether that's being a sounding board. And I'm hoping that people will come up with something really nice, whether that's something like what Chris has made here as an example, using a lot of public domain images of butterflies. And this is Chris, talk me through this. This is open source biodiversity, right?
Yes. So you sent me a link to a page on, I think it was a Flickr or something, and the I think it's a museum has put together a curated collection of digitized images of books where people have made illustrative designs of animals, butterflies. I mean, pretty much all kinds of wildlife you can think of. And the great thing about all of it is that it's all there. It's public domain, as you said. So it's just about extracting that and putting that into there. But I think the idea is that we can, this is an example of what could be possible.
And yeah, 100%. Just because it's a bunch of letters, I don't want to minimize the amount of work that went into drawing these letter shapes, because there was a lot of work that went into thinking, okay, where exactly are the serifs going to be? How thick is each stroke going to be? How do I make it a bit more readable by people with dyslexia? There's a reason that the left one of these stems of the H is a bit thicker than the other one. That's to avoid it being confusing to people with dyslexia. And I've had people say, oh, I'm struggling with vision, and then maybe 5 minutes later they are like, wow, I can actually play this game even though it's speed-based. And that has been for me such a fulfilling thing. Now, I don't believe we are likely to see many more typefaces that are as accessible as this one, but what I'm looking for is something of beauty. Now, we'll nail into this, but what we're looking for is legibility. It has to be, you have to be able to tell the G and the C apart. Theme, it has to be interesting to look at, something that, and visual appeal is the big one. Now, Miles, could you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I think while you're talking about that, I was already thinking a lot about what has gone into my designs and how I've had to think about legibility and sort of combining decorative with legibility. So I know when I was initially designing my type face, there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of play testing. So if you are designing something, I highly encourage you to make sure you play test it. If you have two cards and you lay it over each other, whether you can recognize the letter just from the edge of it, or whether you need to have the whole card reveal, and maybe you might end up mistaking a letter for another letter. So keeping close attention to that, and also just putting a bit of personality into it. I think that's also quite an important thing, is when you create this typeface, especially with the L decks, put your personality into it and help communicate with your forms and your shapes, something that you like. And yeah.
Ultimately, all of this stuff, I want it to be something that people are proud to have out in the world. My ideal system, sorry, Tom and Jason, you earlier talked about Categrickell. It would not exist without the L deck. It would not exist without Tom Cauldron. And so it's like this fusion. And my ideal world is a world in which I can motivate more people to draw beautiful stuff and be like, yeah, this is beautiful, and or I say beautiful, but it could be funky, it could be engrossing, it could be mesmerizing, whatever it is that you want to look at it. Now, there's certainly a theme, and obviously for Categrickell, I did, well, graffiti, because that's what makes sense for it. But without revealing too much ahead, we're going to also have a big reveal for Coupell in a minute, which you've been working on. But you thought of, yeah, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. Nature theme. And I think that's such a brilliant theme. But it doesn't mean that it can't be abstract. If someone wants to make a 70s style line art, like with lots of parallel lines and curves and funky colors, that's cool. Just it needs to have a soul, do you know what I mean? Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Anything more that you want to say on that, Miles?
I think I can talk a little bit more about that when I talk about Coupell, actually. I've got some thoughts on there.
And does anyone have any other thoughts on visual appeal in general? Because for me, it's just got to be something that pulls you in, something that, whether it's, look, I don't want to have something that people would consider to be adult, but that doesn't mean it has to be cutesy. If it is a little bit dark, if it's a little bit sinister, if it has a little bit of that Grimm's fairy tales vibe going on, that's totally fine. And just pull us into your world, make us want to look at it. Now, the important thing that I want to say, going back to the typography competition, is that to enter, you need to make 7 letters. I want these to be 7 finished letters, 7 letters that are really nice to look at, But that's just how we're going to rank them on legibility, theme, and visual appeal. And all I can say is that I am really, really excited to see what we've got going on, what people come up with, and what people put into the figurative box for consideration. And I'm super excited. So please go there. By the time you watch this link is going to be live and you will be able to see all the rules. Does anyone have anything more to say on this arts contest? Chris? Jason?
I mean, I would say that the challenge would be making it, balancing that legibility with making it visually appealing. It's actually quite challenging. So you can go abstract, you can go surreal, but then it becomes pushing that boundary of how far it can go. So I would actually give some advice is have some friends with varying visual or neurological differences to have a look at it before you submit, because that will give you a good indication on its legibility. I mean, it's quite subjective on theme, but yeah, go for it. I can't. I'm looking forward to seeing these. I'm not. I can't tell whether I'm not. I don't think I'm going to be judging, but I certainly, being part of the team, I'll probably be able to see some of them before. I'm looking forward. Can anyone do a space theme? That would be quite interesting.
I would love to see what people come up with, and similar to the game design contest, what I am really hoping is that people are willing to try it. If you're not feeling super confident, just give it a go. The worst that can happen is I will be giving as much feedback as I can to everyone. By submitting, you are giving me the non-exclusive rights to show it off, to use it within my stream, to talk about it. I will be talking about these publicly, and hopefully that will be of interest to you as I talk about the letters and other people have a chance to comment on them. And there will be a judging process where maybe one day we will keep it somewhat anonymous, and then the second day everyone will be revealed and based on votes and tallies. And I'm going to be honest, the votes and tallies are basically just for my advice. I'm going to consider that sort of an advisory board, but I make the final decision, because even though I am having more and more help from people, it is still kind of stuff by Bez, let's be honest. But it has to be an imprint of something, and there has to be a bit of me in there. And I would like to talk about Coupell, move on to something else where I am working with another artist, Miles, as we talked about right at the start of the show. This is a game designed by me and art completely not by me. One day there will be an L deck, which is a design from someone else, development from me, but then art by someone else. And I very much look forward to that day when we have more and more artists doing more and more variations on typography for the L deck, which is something to behold. So, Miles, can I bring up the graphics and let you talk through everything that you've done?
Sure. So, this has been a sort of a year-long project in a way, interrupted a little bit by everything, but I've come back to it, and I mostly got a lot of the lettering done before COVID hit, and essentially the general theme is nature. And the reason I picked nature is because it's something that I'm very passionate about. I've got a lot of interest in botanical illustration, and it's and just sort of general nature themed artwork is something that I've been doing for a while, and something that I just really enjoy doing, as well as being outdoors in nature. So it's part of the Coupell deck as well, and I wanted to take the Coupell deck and create a theme around Coupell that sort of makes sense with the theme of the game in a way. And the letter shapes as well, I wanted to keep them fairly similar to the initial L decks. So you'll probably see when you look at them that there's a lot of similarities with the base L deck. So things like the H, for example, which was shown off earlier, the left side, the H is thicker than the left side. Even the left side is thicker than the right side, even though typically in typography you might see it the other way around. I think there's a few other letters as well where, so maybe the M and the N as well. I think those, you can see those. Those are some of the most recent ones I've done. Those have different thicknesses, controversial to standard typefaces, but I wanted to try keep that in the L deck, and I wanted to make sure that the sort of the theme of L and the branding of L came through. So if there's any other L decks as well, there's some sort of consistency between the decks. So I was talking a little bit about theme as well, and in some respects, as it's couple, it's usually a game that you would play as a couple, maybe with your partner. And so I see it as something about relationships. And within each of these letters, you can sort of see a relationship. You can see a symbiosis between the plants that are on each letter. So there's some bark and there's some moss, and they're each sort of living off each other. And that's sort of the approach that I took to picking this nature theme and going with nature. So I've also tried to make some of the lettering slightly unique. So the B, for example, it's got some boletus mushrooms in, and there's a little sort of play on words. So I haven't entirely explored that much yet with a lot of the letterings. A lot of them are still work in progress, but the F, for example, as well, that's got some ferns on top, and that's the only letter with ferns on it. But yeah, it's been a real challenge working on Couple. It's 26 pieces of essentially individually fine crafted watercolor, and watercolor is not something that I'm amazingly experienced with. So it's been a good challenge for me, and it's been really exciting getting to work on this and working on a lot of iterative designs. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I really feel like I've started to get somewhere with it and really sort of nailing down on the designs. This is one that I did this morning, is an O here, and I think this is probably one that I'm most proud of as I get through working through them. Now, one of the things that might immediately jump out to you is the sort of stretch of moss across it, and I really like that. However, I think a little bit of testing might need to be done to see whether maybe that will cause some confusion with the lettering shape or not. So I'm trying not to get too attached to any of the letter designs, and hopefully I won't have to redo too many of them. But yeah, it's been fun, and I really enjoy working on this on these designs. Are there any thoughts that you have on that?
I mean, I'll let everyone else go first. Jason.
I mean, the fact that you say you're not well experienced with watercolor and produce that.
Thank you.
It's like, yeah.
I would say it's the medium that I'm not familiar with, but painting I'm plenty experienced with, so it's not too difficult. But watercolor is really unforgiving, and hard. Many times I just want to change medium, but I stick through it, and it creates some really interesting things. And there's a lot of things in even just between these, what is this, 16 letters, that like new techniques and new ideas that I've discovered and put into it.
I suppose with the coloration between the bark and the grass, the foliage and stuff, that's it's a bit of more of a natural look using things like watercolor, because it seeps through to each other rather than it being you'll have to manually dial that on if you're using the computer, for example, or an photo editor, which can be done, but I suppose that wouldn't be as convincing, I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a sense of charm that you get from doing it traditionally, and there's a lot of mistakes that come out that you just have to accept with it. And I think going back to the letter shapes as well is that I've tried to sort of distort a lot of them and try to, although it's a flat 2D typography, I've tried to create a sort of 3D shape to a lot of them, and I've tried to think about how some bits are branches, or like so with the B's and the F's, all of those lines, they go through everything. And so trying to create that idea and just have a nice sense of organicness.
I hope that you don't mind me saying I'll get like a very Beatrix Potter vibe. You know, the original classic books that I grew up. Oh,
yes, Beatrix Potter is one of my main inspirations because she was a botanical artist, and a lot of my work that I've done before is inspired by her fungi illustrations, which are absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
now,
there's a sense of whimsy as well.
Forwards a little bit, I would like to talk about Coupell. What is Coupell? It's a 2-player cooperative game for the LDEC. Now, again, this is the old becoming the new. With the LDEC is a really fascinating thing because I can invent a game and playtest it, and in theory, people already have the components for that game. If they want to play it in their own house, then they can. 2017, back when I released the original LDEC, and I was going to have Puzzle as the game of, well, the highlighted game of the year, because every year on 1st of August, there is a new game of the year. And back then, this year, it is going to be Unfinishable, which is the highlighted game of the year, because we've had time to play it. I'm going to put a bit more work into making sure the rules are blind tested, maybe get a couple of people who've never heard of this game or played this game certainly never played this game or have any idea what it's all about, to make sure it's playable upon just skimming the rules and not putting too much attention into it. But Coupell, a slow, gentle game. Rado from Rado Runs Through was quite positive about it. You're really caring about your partners. You're talking about how can I make sure that we are perfectly balanced at the end? How can I move my partner's cards? How can I help them grow words as long as possible? It's 2 trees growing side by side, whispering words into the end, and you try to grow the longest words you can. And that's basically what it's all about. At the end, you've got your own score pile, but you want to be perfectly matched. This is going to be all illustrated, box and everything before I go to Kickstarter. What I'm hoping is that by the time that Categrickell gets printed, everything will be done for Coupell, and then that will be the Kickstarter that happens at that point to say, yes, Categrickell, you can buy it. It's available if you want a funky, edgy version, or if you want Coupell, the more sedate, more serene version. And it's down to people to pick what they want, because the LDEC, in a sense, there's a deck for everyone. I see that we're starting to run out of time, so I am going to, unless anyone has anything more to say right now about the LDEC, or Miles, if you have any advice for anyone who's wanting to submit something for the arts contest, or...
No, I think I've shared all of my thoughts that I can think of.
Well, from something that's old and is becoming new to something that I just thought of a few weeks ago that I am probably going to print, let's talk about Strange Animal Noises. So, Strange Animal Noises was done for a game jam that I ran, very much inspired by someone else's online game jam. Idol Michael, shouts out to you. I did a game jam where it was like, okay, Chris actually sent in, what was it you said? The noise of an animal. And inspired by that, it was, okay, what noise would these animals make? And let's say I was making a noise that was going, which of these animals do you think I would be trying to make the noise of? Top, middle, or bottom?
Top.
Yeah, I'd go with top.
So I was really bad, clearly, because I was trying to do the bottom, but everyone would get a point. So in this game, let me make myself bigger quickly. You have a bunch of strange animals, and in the full game, there's going to be 5 of them on the table at once. You have to make a noise appropriate to one of these animals. Everybody else guesses. If they guess with the majority, then they get a point, because that suggests that everyone else made a good guess. It was me at fault. So in that round, everyone would have gotten a point except for me. Conversely, if you guess correctly, you also get a point. And with the person making the noise, if the majority or the majority tied or the most prevalent answer gets it correct, then you get a point. So there are quite a few rounds where it's just okay, everyone gets a point. There's some rounds where no one gets it right, and really we're trying to go with that, but a couple of people are always going to get a point. It's mathematically necessary. You're going to push towards some sort of ending, and eventually someone will win. Yeah. And this is a game that I want to make the first busy budget bag. This is going to be a print-on-demand service. I get it printed in the UK. I chuck it into a bag, literally in a bag. It's not even going to come into a box. But you'll get a whole bunch of illustrations. These are just early drawings. Like, maybe they'll be a bit more like that. I don't know. So, again, strange animals. But it's going to be something where you think, what's going on? And maybe you just want to buy it because you've got a bunch of cards, each card with a couple of strange animals, one on each side. But there's a really nice game attached, and it's a game that you can play on video chat. There is a large company that's having a look at it just now, but no matter what happens with that, I am probably going to do a small print-on-demand run just to have my version out there, just to be able to draw a bunch of strange animals. I'm not going to lie. And that's because, yes, quality matters. I want more boxes like this with nice lettering, with nice gold 2-piece boxes that you can punch. And if I punch it, like, nothing happens to it. It's got some dice in it, which is why it's rattling. Let me take the dice out. There we go. But it's a sturdy box. And I like this quality. I like big instruction rules, and we're going to have achievement sheets and quick start guides to make sure that you don't even need to read the rules if you don't want. You can just look at the top card and it tells you how to set up. And then 6 cards down for Categrickell, it'll, well, this is how to take your first turn. And then a couple of cards later, it'll say, well, this is how to take your second turn, and so forth. And it'll guide you through the game, almost as if I'm standing over your shoulder with a ghostly grip over you, if that's not too creepy. But I want to have that quality, but at the same time, experimentation matters. And that's why, even though Categrickell might not be finished, once I've got the art done, this is going to be the next thing, and it's going to be coming out very quickly. It's going to be done. Because, yes, you've got to have quality, but you've also got to make time for quick, just do it stuff. And that's the end. That is what we've talked about. So we are going to have competitions. Please enter the competitions, whether it is the game contest or whether it is the art contest. And we've talked about Categrickell. Man, that is not a good sign. Categrickell, which is going to be coming out very soon, and I am super excited by it. We talked a little bit about Coupell, and we talked a wee bit about busy budget bags and my future plans to generally move away from doing everything. And is there anything that I forgot to say?
Nope.
Well, at that point, that only leaves me to say bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, bye, bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye, bye bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, bye bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye bye, bye bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye bye, bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye, bye bye. And now it's time to everyone together. Go.
Go.